Okay, so on this episode of the podcast, I am back with Tyler Lee. I had him here on the last episode where we were talking about his businesses, his how he did what he did, and how leadership lessons and entrepreneurial lessons, and it was awesome. But now we're going to have him talk about he's running for Congress, and we want to know why. Stay tuned.
You are listening to the Leadersmith, Darren Gerdes.
Okay, so Tyler, we're back. Thank you for joining me yet again. And you said that you're running for Congress. And from what I saw online, you had hashtag, I think, enough is enough.
Enough is enough, right?
So tell me about that. What's causing you to run other than enough? I mean, tell me about the enough, and just I'll let you speak rather than try to lead you a particular way. You tell me.
Well, thank you for having me. I tell you, last year, COVID, the line in the sand for me last year that was crossed was when the government shut down churches and small businesses, but they left open strip clubs and abortion clinics and liquor stores. And our own governor here in North Carolina said, well, we need to leave the ABC stores open because people need to cope with this pandemic. Yet you're going to shut down the churches and keep people out of community. And that just didn't sit well with me. I thought it was very hypocritical. I don't think the government should determine who's essential and who's non-essential and have that right. And so that's why I said enough is enough. I'm going to step up. I'm leaving the business world behind. We, the people, are not being represented in DC. These corrupt, these career-long politicians, they care about themselves. They care about their buddies and lining their own pockets. And I'm just tired of the corruption. And so it's time to take a stand. And I see many others around the country are doing the same, whether it's on a local level or state level. But I'm being called to run for United States Congress.
Okay, so let's do this. You don't have a background in government itself. Tell us what your background is.
For the past decade, I've been a business owner. Mm-hmm. And so I've had the vision for businesses, and then I execute on that. And so running for Congress is similar. Now it's on a larger scale, but it's like starting a business. And so it's about, as I shared in the previous podcast, putting the right people around you to help you win, to help you get there, because I don't have all the answers. I've now been doing this for 5 months. I've been learning the political realm, but it's a lot to learn in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Okay, so was it really just COVID, or was this something that has been in the back of your mind, or is it really just the last couple of years that have made you go, you know what, this has to change?
You know, while I was in college at Liberty, when we were in class together, there were moments where I thought maybe one day in my life I'll run for politics. But
I hope that I helped put salt in your mouth.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know, the whole question was you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, but you can put salt in its mouth, right? So I hope somewhere along the way when you were in class, and if you don't know, if you haven't listened to the earlier podcast episode where he was talking about what he's done in business, we were talking about our background. Tyler was in my class back in 2006. And it was a free market, a constitutional government and free enterprise class. That's where we knew each other from. And so I'm glad to see that this is where you are. I mean, this is good. Both sides, both the business side, because that gives you some sense about how to actually run the government, as well as the governmental side. I'm glad that you're going down that path. So I'm sorry with the interruption, but back to you so you thought about it there, but
I just, Tyler's timeline doesn't always add up to what God wants of you. So I thought maybe later in life I'll run for politics. I'll dabble in it. But with the way the country's been going the last 18 months, has just watching all the chaos and the evil overrun our country.
Yeah.
It's time to get rid of the people that just don't have our best interests. Many of these politicians, they are so obsessed with power and greed and money, and they want to play the role of God. So they're trying to remove God from everything. And so that's what we're up against. It's not against flesh and blood. This is a battle against the spiritual evils of the world. And so God called me to do this. I know that this is my new calling. I've burned the ships. I've left the business world behind. This is my full-time focus. I know this is what he's called me to do. And as I shared in the previous podcast, which if you didn't listen to, go check out, I know that this is where my future lies. And I have to cut out the distractions and the noise, because there are people that say, well, you've never been in politics. How are you going to pull this off? But I've heard that for the last decade and everything else I've done. And so I'm going to hustle harder than everyone. I don't have a family. I don't have kids. And so this is a full-time focus, and we will work out, strategize, and win. That's our goal. And that's what we're going to do. And we'll see where it leads.
So you said you're talking about power. Now, people get to Washington and their Mr. Smith goes to Washington and then they get corrupted. What's going on there? Why does that happen?
Because I don't think they've taken care of the core issue prior to going to DC, right? I mean, pride gets a lot of people, but it's about the last 5 months have taught me a lot. I've laid the groundwork to prepare me to go to DC. So I have 2 gentlemen around me that regularly hold me accountable. We meet weekly. So it's all about being vulnerable. So you have got to lay the groundwork ahead of time. Many of these people don't do that. And the enemy will find your weaknesses and he'll attack. So you have to know the strategy. You have to know what the enemy is going to come at you with. And so I know where those weaknesses are. And so I've had to ramp up my boundaries and put the right people around me. In my church, my friends, they have access to me and know where they've been given permission to speak into my life and say, hey, you need to watch out for this, or I see you're doing this. It's all about being vulnerable and open. So
that's right.
Going back to your question, many people go to DC because they want the title, they want the money. And so they haven't taken care of that core in them. They're obsessive. Those are their idols. And for me, I just want to represent people. I love people. I care for people. I'm looking out for our future generations. I want to help steer the ship back in the right direction. I'm certainly not going to be the one that changes it or can turn an entire government around, right? But as people step up, others follow. And so my ultimate goal is to encourage others in future election cycles to say, hey, he came out of the private sector. He was successful. How did he do that? And I want to help people join me in government, and run for office. And then we'll start turning this ship back in the right direction. But it's going to be a lot of work. We're up against pure evil right now.
Yeah. You answered the question in an awesome way. I've never known let's use in the business world, a CEO that to be on the level or even good if they eschewed accountability. Like the guys that are trying to not be held accountable by their board or by anybody else around them, my spidey senses go up and I see that. And you said exactly the opposite. You were saying, look, I've welcomed accountability into my life, and you have to. Lord Acton talked about power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? Mm-hmm. Do you know what his next line was? His next line was, great men are, and when you say talk to great men, like influential men, are almost always bad men, even when they exercise influence and not authority. And again, it goes back to that accountability issue that you just talked about, how so you're thinking through, look, I'm not only going to go there and promise these things, but here I'm trying to keep myself in check so that this doesn't go wrong. Okay. So tell me now more, not just about you, but about specific policy issues that are, like you said, there's great evil. I would agree. We're running off the rails. I mean, when I look around, just about every index that I hold dear has gone the wrong direction in the last year or so. So tell me what, policy issues, what are big pieces of focus for you? What are your platform planks?
Well, what the people are asking for right now, and again, unless it goes against my morals and values, I'm here to represent the people. So what they want currently, what we hear is election integrity. If the other side continues to steal elections, well, we're doomed.
That's
so
right.
We have to get a hold of that. voter ID is a big topic right now, and certainly the balance in that is, I don't, as the federal government, I do not want to tell the states how to run their elections. So where I balance on that is, I'll push for voter ID on our federal elections. The states can certainly decide what they want to do, on their state and local, if they
But
want
yeah,
to
I
make
mean,
voter ID or not.
if you believe that something has, like, so there's a continuum, right? All the way from the election was stolen to nothing happened. But when the rules changed and different states, like, okay, the legislature has the right to change the rules, but a governor just made an edict. How fair is that? How was it? And it leads to all kinds of questions, let alone were things mailed in that shouldn't have been mailed in, or stuffed, or right, or was it electronically? We have to get a handle on that, or we're in trouble.
We're in trouble.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing, to ensure that we can win elections. And look, if you're on the other side, and I'm happy for you if you can win. I just want you to win fairly.
That's right. That's exactly right.
If you can't win at the ballot box, then you should check your platform, and maybe your messaging isn't working. You shouldn't have to steal an election and steal your way through. But that's what's going on. It's so corrupt. It's not a secret that elections are stolen. They have been for many decades, in different parts of the country. And so we've got to get a hold of that. The other one is the border crisis. That's a hot topic right now, and I have personal experience with that. When I owned my rental properties, I had a husband and wife pass away. They overdosed on fentanyl. 90% of fentanyl is being tracked back to the border. These cartels are bringing fentanyl over. We're allowing it, and there's terrorists coming through. We have local sheriff's office breaking up ISIS camps, and you see the danger that's coming across the border. And I'm all for immigration. I want people to come to America. There's a reason people come to America. We just need to know who they are. They need to come through legally. And the sad part about it is, when people come through legally, they know more about American history than our own children do now, because our children are not being educated. They're being indoctrinated.
Yeah, that's that. I don't even know which question to ask, because you raised a number of them in my mind. But
we could talk for hours. There's hundreds.
When you were talking about the border crisis, I was watching an interview where the former head of the border, whatever, was talking about how we have this idea, like, oh, it's just Mexicans going over the border, it's just Central Americans going over the border, and the left will then look at it and say, well, you're a racist because you oppose it. No. People from north of 100 different countries are streaming over that border.
Right.
That was shocking to me.
Passage.
So, okay, so you need to do something about that. Yeah, I mean, if you can't control your border, what country do you have, right? So, okay, so what other issues are near and dear to your heart that you want to, like, if you have to plant your flag, it's going to be on this, that, and the other thing. What are the big issues, other things that you haven't talked about?
Well, certainly inflation is getting out of control. We are spending more money than we have. We've got to get our budgets under control. It's just common sense. I mean, if you spend more than you make, you're going to be in the hole, and that's negatively impacting our wallets right now. You look at gas prices, you look at food prices, you look at food shortages. So then prices are going to rise when there's no food on the shelves. Everything's rising very quickly, and we expect to see that 2022 is going to be worse. And
you just watch what'll happen with the supply chain being jacked up as it is,
right?
And Christmas coming down the pike. The oil spill, I understand, in California was because of all the cargo ships out there. One of the anchors hit the pipeline, and so we're just having this cascade of different problems because of inflation. So you're absolutely right to make that a high priority.
Those are the top three issues that I hear from citizens currently. And what I've learned is, people just I don't have to do the talking. I just listen. That's all I need to do, is sit there and listen. And I am a voice for them. When I go to DC, I'm a voice for them. And I know politicians say that, but trust me, I would rather stay in the private sector than dabble into politics. And I love what I'm doing. I love this ability, but But I tell you, these politicians, they don't look out for us. They don't talk to their people, and they don't listen to what they want. They look out for their buddies in DC, or lobbyists, and what they want. And that's where the disconnect is. And that is why I feel like I'm supposed to run for Congress, is because I want to be the voice for the people. And whatever they tell me they want, again, if it doesn't go against my morals, I'm going to lead the charge and be a representative for them.
Yeah,
This is what I'm called to do.
yeah. You were talking earlier about lack of experience. Well, of course, you didn't have any experience. No congressman had experience before they were congressmen, right? I mean, by definition. I would have thought. Now, I understand. I was given Joe Biden the benefit of the doubt, right? When he was talking about how, look, it's time to come together. I'm going to be the president of all America. And while I am a die-in-the-wool conservative, I've always been on that side of the fence. I was like, hey, look, I hope he lives up to that. And he's turned out not to be. But I was really surprised by this. You would think that someone with his years of experience would be masterful at moving the levers of government, and it's been disastrous. So I don't know what to make of the disastrousness of how, when you have almost 50 years in government. But I can tell you, you can do a whole lot better than that. And so rolling the dice on somebody with no experience that has experience in the business world seems like a pretty good suggestion to my mind.
Well, you'll be known by your fruits. You can look at somebody's past.
Right.
What has Joe Biden done in the 46 years that he was in office? Can any of his supporters name anything? I'd love to know. And so what Joe's masterful about is lining his buddies' pockets, being in bed with China. That's what he's masterful about. He knows the game. He's been bought off. And so that's why you saw a disastrous pullout at Afghanistan, because it was not about Americans. It was not about our troops. It was about money. China had the rights to the mineral rights there. That's all a money deal. That's all they cared about. And so that's what Joe's good at, is lining his pockets, lining his son's pockets, lining the CCP's pockets. That's what Joe's good at. So, again, if you look at my history, I've been blessed with the last 10 years in the business world. My character, my fruits, they show that I'm capable of being a good representative for the people. And so that's how you have to judge somebody. That's why I don't understand why people listen to some of these politicians. They just get up there and say what people want to hear, and they just continuously get voted into office. I just don't get it. And then they get there and they do the exact opposite of what they said. And then in 2, 4, 6 years, whenever they run again for another office, they just say what people want to hear. And then they go against everything they said. And like Trump or hate Trump, the one thing Trump did was, when he said something, he actually followed through with it. I don't think there's anybody that can deny that on either side.
No.
He's very polarizing, but he followed through with his promises. He did.
That's absolutely correct. Okay, so since you raised that, I want to hear. So you had these top 3 platform items. What are you going to do with it? I mean, like, how will you have an impact on these issues? So just let's go back through them, and like, what can you do to, I don't know, write the right law or right the ship somehow? What do you do when you get there?
Well, again, I want to present this opportunity to people that say, well, I don't think I can run for office. I don't have the money. I don't know how to. So I want to be able to encourage people to join me. So this will not be an overnight process. This is going to be many future election cycles down the road. And so the ones that are in office, I know a few of them that are the good guys now, and women. They need help. They want backup. And there's a young congressman named Madison Cawthorn out of North Carolina. Madison said, I need backup. So I intend to work with Madison on issues. And we have other great congressmen and women around North Carolina that we know. And so it's certainly just getting everybody unified, getting all these corrupt people out that don't care. And that's just going to take time. We're going to have to be transparent, bring that to light, and go against the grain here. And we'll certainly be attacked probably by our own party and the other side. But We have got to start representing the people.
I love the way that your mind works as a businessman, and the way that you answered the question wasn't the policy, but the people. And the Leadership Institute in DC talks about personnel as policy. That's exactly right. You get the right people in there to make the right decisions, they'll start healing the process. But the opposite is also true. Okay, not what are you specifically going to do. Let me ask you a different question. How do these things get fixed? So let's take the border. Okay, not what you specifically, how you will specifically vote, but what could you do to fix whatever is going wrong down there?
Well, the border is a national security issue.
Okay.
And if you read the Constitution and study the Constitution, really the federal
Yeah.
government overreaches in everything. But one of our priorities is national security and ensuring the states have free enterprise among each other. And I'll fund the border wall. I'll fund our military to ensure that our national security is ramped up. So that's what I can do, is vote for those items.
Yeah. I understand
and,
we're
and
paying
funder.
I understand we're paying contractors millions of dollars a day to not work,
It
which
just,
I find I find is mind-boggling. Like, how do I get into that business is my first thought, and then my second thought is shame on you. Don't think that.
and
Well,
the people that
it's
say
amazing.
you can't, the people that say you can't take business principles into government, I don't understand that, because again, it goes back to, if you spend more than you make, it doesn't matter if you're in government, if you run a church, if you run a nonprofit,
It's
name
all the
it.
same,
It's the same
yeah.
principle. So we have
Unless
got.
you're in the government.
I
In
mean,
which case, so the people that are saying that, to my mind, are people that don't understand business. Because if you understand business, you recognize what a valuable skill set this is that you're bringing to the table, to actually right the ship. So
and it's all about negotiating. I mean, Trump harped on that. I'm a expert negotiator. You have to be able to find how. It's not what I can get out of this, it's what all parties can get out of. And I feel like the Republican Party just bends over for everything that Democrats want. And we
yeah,
just keep going so far to the left, and things are just getting so out of control. We've got to start holding our ground
that's right.
and making it a win for everyone. But they're not even talking. Neither side talks to each other right now. And it's sad, but I'll give you a story. One of the first events that I ever went to was a school board meeting down in Union County here near Charlotte. And one side was the Republicans and one side was the Democrat. The sidewalk literally split both sides. And I'll tell you how the thinking in politics goes. So I'm there like, hey, why don't you guys, I'm sure there's some common ground. Why don't you guys talk to each other? So I walked over to the other side. The media is standing behind me, and I walk over to the other side. And I said, hey, what are you here for? And they told me. And I said, well, it sounds like you pretty much agree with what they're saying over there. Have you ever just gone over and talked to them? They said, no, we're thinking about it, though. I said, all right, well, cross the sidewalk and just go talk to them. I'm sure you can find some common ground. What did they do? 5-10 minutes later, they thought more on it, and then they walked over and they started talking. And I thought, if that's how I can slowly begin this change in America, get people talking to each other, and we just increase that on a larger scale, get people talking to each other, find out what they care about, what their heart desires. And of course, the experts in the political realm were like, the media is right behind you. If they see you talking to that side, you're going to lose your base, and they're going to blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is the problem in America. This is your way of thinking. If people would just talk to each other and hash some of this stuff out, I think we'll
Right.
find some common ground, because what's happening is the government and these elites, they want people to stay divided. They pit
That's right.
people against each other. Vaccinated versus unvaccinated, masked versus unmasked, BLM. They use every summer. There's an issue that they use to pit people against each other, because they do not want people to be unified.
And it's
so
fascinating. It's fascinating because, like, so I had a conversation at the pool with a friend of mine, right? And we're sitting there just watching the kids play, and we're comparing notes with what we see on TV about how divided everything is, and what we see in our local community at the pool. Right? People are getting along. People are okay. It's not marching
your
in the streets,
neighbor.
calling each other names. It's something totally different. Now, there is a difference between worldviews. And I think, honestly, we need people like you in office, because conservatism is on the run. I mean, culturally and politically, people that have held up conservative ideas are just like abandoning it and running away. No, hold that in place. Now, there's this really interesting quote by Edmund Burke. He said, "A disposition to preserve and an ability to improve taken together would be my standard of a statesman." Now, conservatives tend to do a good job with the disposition to preserve. And sometimes they hold a little bit too much to the status quo because of that. And liberals are really good about the I'm trying to improve by their definition of improve, but they forget about the preserve. How do you do both simultaneously?
What liberals are good at is taking a truth and spinning it with just adding just a little lie to it, and they just keep pushing farther and farther to the left. They just want to divide people and keep people divided, whereas we want to unify people and preserve that. The Democrats say they're the party of love, but they don't show that. They just use organizations like Black Lives Matter to keep people divided. And I'll use this example.
Right.
Last summer, Black Lives Matter, that movement came because the Black community was just looking for something. And so the Democrats used that organization, but that organization goes against family and biblical values. But using the name Black Lives Matter is brilliant, because who's going to say, no, I don't disagree that Black Lives Matter? So they use those titles, they use those names, or they change definitions of words. So they're very good about that. But if you look at it, they are still about discriminating and segregating. They use that with critical race theory, teaching children about being oppressed versus the oppressor. That's another topic that we're seeing taught in our schools now, as critical race theory has become big. So, but last summer, Charlotte, essentially the politicians and the elites just let Black Lives Matter and Antifa burn down the city, or try to at least, and tear up the city. And why do they do that? Why does the media run with that? Because there's probably 36 instigators, but there's thousands of spectators there. But these 36 instigators, they throw things at the police, and then it disrupts the crowds, and it looks like chaos. And then the media runs with it, and that's so the communities will say, "Oh, Black people are so bad; they're tearing up our city." They let it happen intentionally to keep us divided, and a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's the strategy. That is the strategy behind it. And they want to continue to keep Black people in this victim mindset. They want to make it look like it's chaotic, and they want white people mad at Black people, or you name it. So there's strategy behind all of this.
It's working. Everybody's mad at everybody. So whatever
Right.
they're doing, they're being successful, and we need to be the counterbalance to that. So,
We have to bring the truth to the darkness here. I mean, we have to bring the light to darkness, because this is what's happening. This is the evil intent. It's pure evil that we're up against. That's what we're up against is these spiritual evils, and we have got to continue to be bold and speak out against it, and love people. But loving people doesn't mean we necessarily have to agree with them. People think, "Oh, you're such a bigot or a racist if you disagree with me." Well, it's just like having children. I mean, you have children, they'd probably eat candy all day long, every day.
they would if I didn't stop them.
That's right. But why do you do that? Because you can see the end goal. You know that they'll be 100 pounds overweight in a couple of years if you let them eat candy all day. But it doesn't mean you don't love your kids. You're stopping them from eating candy all day long because you actually love them. And so that's the kind of mindset that I have going into this is
Yep.
we have to see the end game here, and we have to steer the ship back in the right direction. We're doing it out of love, because we want people unified, not divided. And I believe we'll do that. I really do.
Okay.
I think we're seeing a revival happen in America right now. People are waking up to this. They're seeing the chaos. They're hopeless. They know something's wrong. They just don't know what necessarily. They can't put their finger on it, but it's giving us opportunities to have these conversations every day. Next week, my campaign is actually holding a worship and prayer night at my home church, because healthcare workers were just like, we're being terminated. We don't know what to do. We're losing our paycheck. Can we just have a worship and prayer night? And that's different for a campaign to do. But if there's no heart change,
right.
there's not, I'm not going to be able to change your politics.
Yep.
Your politics will follow your theology at the end of the day. So I'm here just to plant a seed. I'm not here to change your politics. I'm planting the seed. I'm bringing truth to light, and you have to decide for yourself, if you're going to want to believe truth or not.
That's right. Okay, so listen, we're about out of time. I'm really glad that you came on and were able to explain and unpack all that. I can see the wheels turning, like the businessman thought, going into everything that you're saying. It's a comforting approach to my mind. It's something that we don't hear enough of. I'm going to give you the last word. I want you to tell us about what district you're in, like what sections of your city and the district number, so that if people are looking for you. But I'm going to leave you with a quotation for contemplation here. It's by a guy named Fletcher Nebel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he said this: statesmanship is harder than politics. Politics is the art of getting along with people, whereas statesmanship is the art of getting along with politicians.
Good. Well, I appreciate you giving me the platform to talk today. You can keep watch on my campaign. It's votetylerlee.com.
That was my next question: was how do people get a hold of you? Vote Tyler Lee.
We'll make the announcement. Certainly we want to flip the House in 2022, and our campaigns run on volunteers and supporters. So if you can donate and contribute, we want to ensure that our children and their children, future generations, live in an America that we've lived in, that we enjoy the freedoms and they enjoy the freedoms that we've had. So if you can contribute, it's votetylerlee.com. I'd greatly appreciate it.
Tyler, thank you so much for coming on the program a second time. And if you did not hear Tyler, his backstory about the businesses that he was involved in and how he did what he did up to this point, go back one episode and you will be able to hear that as well. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.